when we signed up for the app,
Yeah.
I did a little presentation to the GPs and explained it. And
Yeah.
we have a texting service as well, so we can just text the information to a patient. So we'll explain what it is, and then we'll text them. So it's not, that's through doing things over the phone, and then but then if I see someone face to face, I'll also send them the text as a link as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you also use System 1? Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have given people the sheet, but I also have it on my phone. So if I have them with me, I will show them what it looks like, how it works, and I'll explain it that way. And I find they're more, I think, receptive. Once they know what something looks like, they're a bit more keen to use it, I think, because they know what they're looking for. But
the level of distress that you're picking up, or your practice is picking up, is much higher than the other practices in Northampton, or indeed many other.
Yeah, I think we're quite confident and comfortable giving it to people. And I think for me, when I give it out, sometimes, because not everyone is ready to sort of fully, if they're not well, they're not always able to take in the information.
Sure.
So sometimes I have given it to people because it's quite structured. I like that it's not just something to dip in and out of. And I find that people quite like the idea of making it part of a routine. And I do say that, you know, you need to learn how to give yourself some headspace. Dipping in and out here and there is not always everything you need. And I think, especially when sleep is an issue, I give it out and I say, look, make this part of your bedtime routine. You know, you're learning to give yourself space. You know, the maximum time of length of a track, isn't it? It's about 20 minutes. So it's not a huge commitment for somebody, but it's giving them a really healthy routine to sort of give themselves some headspace. And I sort of approach it from that angle sometimes. And, you know, learning how to, self-compassion, a bit of time for themselves, and using those first 2 tracks as well can be really helpful. And sometimes I say focus on those first 2 tracks, and when you're able to move on for the rest of the program, you know. And I think that has been really helpful. And I've heard loads of people, patients, you know, come back to us and say, you know, they did that for the first little while and then they were able to move on when they got it into a really good routine, when they got used to giving themselves that time. Because a lot of people don't give themselves that time and don't see it as important enough, but actually it has really helped with their sleep and their mental health overall. And then they're able to pick out other bits.
That's great. Fantastic to hear all that.
When I first came to this surgery, we'd introduced it, I was a little bit like, oh, I'm really hoping it's going to work. I hope it's going to be worthwhile, you know. And straight away there was a gentleman who was was struggling for the first time with in his view of mental health, and it was lockdown had impacted him. He wasn't able to go to work, and he was really struggling with his mood. And he used it, and he was amazed, and it was lovely to hear he had really found that was his answer by giving him some time in that headspace and be able to work on that positive mindset was really, really helpful. And I always remember that one because it was one of the first ones, and that was brilliant.
Had he been having, you know, distress for a long while, or is he someone
I had never met him before.
You'd never seen him before?
No, so I hadn't met him before. No. So for him, it was his first presentation with mental health and struggling with his mood like he was, because I think he was in his 50s and suddenly not working, and it was a massive change, and he wasn't used to being in the house and so much, and that adjustment was really difficult.
So it just sort of pulled him out of it, really. It just kind of
and that's what I like about it. For some people, it's their first presentation, and that's all, you know, and that's been enough. But it's like anything, not everyone gets on with it, you know. And the fact that there are choices, the male voice or the female voice, I think that's really important. And to have the music or not in the background, that's also important.